This is how a pirate ship flies through the air in the 21st century. It is about a vessel destroyed by the L-52 Castilla, an amphibious ship of the Spanish Navy participating in Operation Atalanta. Since 2008, the naval force of the European country has been part of this mission aimed at contributing to the deterrence, prevention, and repression of acts of piracy and armed robbery off the coast of Somalia. However, despite other nations also joining this effort to prevent crime at sea, pirates continue to lurk fiercely and brutally. In this new video from Military Aviation, we will show you closer to this phenomenon, where often the sea criminals encounter crews determined not to lose anything during their journey. Would you dare to confront them? As we can see in the following images, commercial ships have become accustomed to carrying heavy-caliber weaponry to match and deter criminals with bursts of fire. Additionally, those responsible for firing are individuals hired specifically to deal with these threats, hired assassins ready to kill pirates. From China to the coasts of Africa, pirates continue to instill fear in the planet's seas. It is true that those who practice this illegal profession have changed their ways significantly over time, but the essence remains the same. If we think about past centuries, the huge ships with black flags and a skull sent shivers down the spine of any sailor. The larger the vessel, the greater the number of pirates and the chances of seizing a large booty. But today things have changed, and the most chosen alternative is fast boats. These are small vessels that can easily go unnoticed and escape quickly to avoid being caught. Alongside this change, modern piracy is accompanied by maritime trade, which has quadrupled in the last 40 years. In fact, transportation by sea represents more than 90% of global trade. Figures that explain the resurgence of the criminal phenomenon. With this in mind, it's not surprising that pirates have become a real headache for companies and governments. With state-of-the-art weaponry and technology, they are ready to patrol coastal waters and strategic points such as the Strait of Malacca, the Gulf of Guinea, and the Horn of Africa. For this occasion, we will focus on the last of these affected areas, which is the home of Somali pirates. The Horn of Africa, and more precisely the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, is a key artery of international traffic. With just 115 kilometers in length, it separates the Red Sea from the Gulf of Aden, and about a quarter of the world's maritime trade passes through it. The explosion of piracy in this area occurred in the early years of the 2000s. Somalia's economic crisis was compounded by internal political conflicts, leaving the country without a government with real power over its territory. This caused people to need new sources of income, and authorities could do nothing to prevent money from coming in through crime. Somali pirate gangs are largely composed of fishermen who feel that foreign ships are coming to plunder and deprive them of their livelihoods. They were joined by ex-combatants and experts in state-of-the-art equipment to become a major threat. Generally, attacks are carried out by a small group of between 5 and 7 men, in fast boats with outboard motors departing from a mothership. Then, a larger group waits on the coast for any eventuality. Once the victim is identified, they set sail armed with AK-47 assault rifles, PKM machine guns, and RPG-7 rocket launchers. The goal is to attach the ship with hooks and then climb aboard with ropes and ladders. Once on board, the pirates force the crew to stop. This is how multiple extortionate kidnappings have occurred, for which a hefty ransom is later demanded. Between 2005 and 2012, pirates were responsible for the hijacking of 179 ships off the coast of Somalia and the Horn of Africa, of which 85% were released after payment. During that period, according to the UN, the World Bank, and Interpol, these criminals managed to generate revenues of $400 million. But they don't always get what they're looking for. In June 2008, the United Nations Security Council unanimously agreed to allow naval forces from some countries to enter Somalia's territorial waters to combat piracy. The measure was proposed by France, the United States, and Panama, and over time, more nations joined different operations. Additionally, in 2011, when this problem peaked in numerous attacks, vessels were authorized to hire private security on board to fight pirates with professional hitmen. U.S. ships use their armaments to destroy the criminals' boats. From powerful anti-material rifles with .50 caliber ammunition to missiles launched from helicopters that blow everything to pieces. In the case of these aircraft, they are a great alternative for the most powerful armies when facing Somali pirates. They don't always use all their firepower to destroy enemy vessels, but enough to corner them and eventually capture them. Here is an example where the Royal Navy uses its helicopters to keep a ship at bay, which moments later is surrounded and boarded by personnel from the British forces arriving in boats. However, this is not the only resource, and alternatives also include various cannons. Gatling cannons are capable of firing thousands of rounds per minute, while other systems fire fewer rounds but larger and more powerful ones. For example, the Mk-38, which earned the nickname Pirate Killer with its 25mm projectiles. These options are often present during confrontations and become lethal for those trying to hijack the wrong ship. However, Somali pirates have achieved their victories. As mentioned earlier, they carried out successful operations where they could collect hundreds of millions of dollars in ransom. It is estimated that the criminals who carry out the missions receive 30% of that loot, while another 20% goes to the leaders of the gangs. Additionally, another 30% is intended to bribe local officials to operate, and the remainder is used to purchase ammunition. The impact of the money earned in this illegal practice can be seen in Isle, a town that has developed thanks to the indirect benefit it receives from crimes. This place has become a center for pirate activities, so its inhabitants have contact with the profits and what that money allows them to buy. They are no strangers to the latest innovations in technological items or cars, nor to many other luxuries. The network expands in places like these, where the vast majority of people end up involved in piracy. This can be seen from the use of restaurants prepared for the kidnappers to negotiation specialists or accountants who join the activities. For example, a translator can earn more than $5,000 for boarding a ship and conversing with hostages. These are well-paying jobs based on the flow of money for ransoms, resulting in a lavish life for pirates who can build new houses or acquire 2 or even 3 wives. However, the price to pay is high in case of being involved in combat. Pirates who do not lose their lives in fierce confrontations can still be captured and brought before the courts of countries such as Spain, the United States, France, or the Netherlands. That's why, since there has been a greater presence of forces from these nations on the coasts of Somalia, this type of crime has dropped sharply. Many times in such an explosive manner. However, despite the reduction in the number of actions in the Horn of Africa, it still represents 30% of the total maritime piracy acts worldwide. And, to make matters worse, this practice is showing signs of resurgence. At the end of 2023, the Somali Maritime Police had to intensify patrols in the Gulf of Aden after a failed attempt to hijack a ship in the area. The commander of the maritime force in the semi-autonomous region of Puntland, Abdullahi Mohammed Ahmed, said that security presence in those waters had doubled and that they also operated 24 hours a day to deter pirates. Overwhelmed by the situation, the commander stated, "Now we have many challenges. Initially, we had dealt with the pirates and stopped their activities, but recently, we've had to be alert to them again." This led, for the first time in many years, the Somali government to seek international assistance to halt a resurgence of piracy in the Horn of Africa. In this regard, Mohammed criticized, "The state of Puntland is alone in this security effort. Without assistance from the African Union mission in Somalia, the European Union, or any other international aid. But we do everything we can. While awaiting a response from the international community, Somalia's state forces will continue to battle alone. Although probably not with the success they would like. Thus, we approach the end of our video, having closely examined the confrontations between modern pirates and ships with hired gunmen on board. Additionally, we leave with the certainty that regardless of the passage of time, these characters will continue to instill fear in every sailor who must embark on a journey at sea. It's time to Piracy in the waters adjacent to Somalia has always been a threat to international shipping. Most of the criminals on the high seas are young people from very poor areas, fishermen and ex-combatants, who try to escape their economic situation by carrying out violent kidnappings and large ransom demands. Pirates attack in small groups of 7 to 10 individuals and use fast boats with outboard motors. But, in addition, they are usually armed to the teeth. Among the weapons used during the assaults are AK-47 rifles, PKM machine guns and RPG-7 rocket launchers. The significant increase in pirates attacking merchant ships became one of the main concerns, and measures to solve this problem were not long in coming. In recent times, successful attacks and hijackings by pirates have decreased significantly, but they have not completely disappeared. This criminal activity persists despite the enormous joint work of various air forces from different international actors, who, using incredible planes and drones, work to combat piracy from the air. But how is it possible that the fight against piracy does not give the desired results despite the tireless military effort? To try to answer this question, today we will tell you about some of the operations that were launched in order to hunt down Somali pirates off the coast of Africa, and the main characteristics of the planes and drones used in them. Are you ready? Well then, let's get started. One of the means used by the international community to deal with this criminal phenomenon were the naval military patrols organized in Operation Ocean Shield, carried out by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, better known as NATO. Maritime operations began on August 17, 2009. The primary objective was to provide naval escorts and a deterrence posture in the region, all while increasing cooperation and work sharing with other anti-piracy missions. NATO allies provided patrol ships and aircraft to the standing maritime groups. Naval forces operated off the Horn of Africa, including the Gulf of Aden and the Western Indian Ocean. There, NATO ships carried out intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance missions to verify shipping activity off the coast of Somalia. In this way, they were in charge of separating the legitimate traffic from the suspected pirate ships. Commercial ships that transited through the area were monitored and in many cases escorted to ensure their safe passage. NATO ships were allowed to use force to stop pirate vessels or intervene in a hijacking. Thus, they actively persecuted those they considered suspicious and managed to prevent the organization of several attacks. The operation was successful and came to an end on December 15, 2016. However, NATO remained committed to the fight against piracy and took care to establish close ties with other international actors involved in the issue. That was extremely convenient because, by 2017, pirate attacks had returned to Somali waters. The union of various countries and the resources used became a key element in operations of this type. But to better understand its logic and operation, let's go into the details of a specific case. The former French Foreign Legion outpost in Djibouti became the main arena for these relentless fights. There, Western forces began a protracted but largely secret campaign against extremists deep inside Somalia, Yemen and East African waters. To fulfill their purposes, several aircraft were made available to monitor the area to keep it clear. Let's check out some of them. Predator and Reaper drones fly daily from the base, striking targets in restive northern Yemen and southern Somalia. Since August 6, 2014, the General Atomics MQ-1 Predator began to be used for these missions. It is an unmanned aerial vehicle, classified by the United States Air Force as medium altitude and long range. It is mainly used in reconnaissance missions. However, it has the possibility of incorporating 2 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles, which makes it an important combat drone. But it is not alone. Since September 2009, Africa Command has deployed Reapers to the Seychelles for use in Indian Ocean anti-piracy patrols. The General Atomics MQ-9 Reaper is the world's first hunter-killer unmanned aerial vehicle, designed for long-duration, high-altitude surveillance. The MQ-9 is a larger, heavier, and more capable aircraft than the previous MQ-1 Predator. It is a drone with a medium flight ceiling, long autonomy, and remote piloting that is mainly used to execute moving targets. It has a maximum flight altitude of 15,240 meters, a range of 1,850 kilometers, and reaches a speed of 370 kilometers per hour. As if this were not enough, the aircraft has a multispectral targeting system that allows it to discover and designate targets using laser and infrared sensors, as well as through the use of various cameras that also allow its activity to be viewed live from anywhere on the planet. Both drones play a fundamental role, but due to the high level of control that is required on the coasts of Africa, they usually work together. For this reason, the airbase also has a large group of maritime patrol aircraft from various nations. Since the early 2000s, Djibouti has hosted P-3 Orion aircraft from the United States Navy, the Spanish Air Force, and the German Navy. In 2009, Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force P-3 Orion crews made history by beginning the nation's first overseas deployment since the end of World War II. After suffering a cargo ship hijacking, Singapore also added to this list and deployed Fokker F-50 patrol planes to help police the area. But you may be wondering, what is the specific role of the planes in this mission? Several Lockheed P-3 Orions fly daily from Djibouti and are supplemented by a task force of warships. These aircraft are intended to provide real-time surveillance updates on the position of suspected pirate ships. The Orion is a medium-weight transport aircraft. It has large, straight and spread wings that give it better performance in low altitude and speed flights. A feature especially necessary to carry out surveillance tasks. In addition, it has 4 turboprops inserted in the wings. Each propeller has 4 large blades that can rotate on its own axis, which helps to greatly improve its performance. However, there is a detail about the function of the aircraft that is particularly striking in these cases. Despite the fact that the pirates attack using a wide variety of weapons, the Orions fly unarmed in their raids against piracy. Although military spokesmen declined to comment, aircrews are known to rely on information to neutralize the pirate threat and prefer to avoid the use of weapons. This is because the vast majority of hijackings end with the crew and vessel being safely returned to their owners after a ransom is paid. Any attempt by military forces to use violence against pirates ultimately endangers the crew and hostages. Thus, crews aim to identify suspected pirate ships and warn nearby merchant ships to change course. This could explain why piracy continues to take place in an area that is heavily policed and has incredible drones and aircraft in its favor. The use of force that the military can exercise is limited to self-defense or that of the crews and protected vessels. For this reason, preventive force actions cannot be carried out on suspicious vessels. Young pirates don't have as intimidating equipment as those in the Air Force, but inside their small boats, rifles and machine guns give them all the confidence they need to attack. As a consequence of the efforts made and beyond not being able to put a decisive end to it, there was a significant drop in the number of attacks on ships. However, in 2017, there were some attempts to steal cargo through piracy. The shipping companies are already in charge of finding out if these attacks have returned to the region or if it is an isolated event. For this reason, the alliances to stop the pirates will continue indefinitely and, perhaps, their planes and drones will deploy their full attack capabilities. We reached the end of our video and we want to thank you for joining us here. We meet again in the next episode of Military Aviation.